Hello everyone, welcome again to my channel. So this is another episode about writing and particularly about writing sentences, okay, writing sentences. So in the previous episode we talked about writing sentences in general. We saw some patterns of sentences. I promised this episode is going to be about this specific pattern, okay, this specific pattern, okay. What is it? Very simply, subject, verb, object, okay. This is a pattern, very common one, okay. So in this episode we are going to see how to write sentences using this pattern, okay, subject, verb and object, okay. For example, here we can say I read books. I read books. This is a sentence, okay, this is a sentence. So I is the subject and read is verb and books is object, okay, books is object, okay. Subject can be either, as I told you before, pronouns, okay, can be pronouns, or it can be nouns or even phrases, all right. Okay, so this is what subjects can be. It can be either pronouns or noun or phrase. For example, I here is very simply pronoun, is a pronoun, okay? All right, now just keep in mind that the verb can either be verb to be or it can be others, okay? It can be other verbs, okay, others. For example, read, it can be play, it can be listen, it can be do, it can be have, any other verbs, okay, any other verbs and verb to be. I told you last time that these verbs should be conjugated. And when I say conjugated here, I mean it can be the present or past or even future. It should be conjugated according to the tense, to the time, okay, according to the time. Are we talking about present or past, or are we talking about the future, okay, the future? So this has to do with the grammar and you have to be aware of these tenses. For example, verb read here, I read books, this has to do with present, okay. All right, so this is for the verb. Again, when we talk about the object can either be pronoun or it can be noun or even phrase, okay. So this is what an object can be pronoun or noun or even phrase. Now let's come here again to the subject. So as I said, subject can be either pronouns, noun or phrase. For example, pronouns, we call them subject pronouns. For example, I, you, he, she, it. Okay, then you can have we, you and they. These ones are singular and these ones are plural, okay. This is singular and these ones are plural, okay. So this is for subject pronouns. For example, here the subject is pronoun, okay, I read books. The subject can also be noun. Nouns, for example, as John, Anna, for instance, or student, okay. Take, for instance, table, all right, school, okay. For example, book, okay, etc. So these are examples of nouns, okay, examples of noun, okay. For example, Anna can be replaced by she, okay, but John can be replaced by he. Student, plural, so they, okay. So we have table and book. It is an object, so it's, okay. All right. Okay, phrase, for example, it can be like my friend, okay, the teacher, okay, the school, the best friend, etc. So these are examples of phrases. So as you can see here, phrase more than 2 words, but we don't have the verb, okay, we don't have the verb. That's what we mean by the phrase. For example, here we can say I read books, or we can say, for example, he reads books, or we can say John reads books, or we can say my friend reads books, or the teacher reads books. So the subject can be one of these things. We are going to see a very simple example. Now let's go to the object. The object again can also be pronouns, nouns or phrases, okay. Pronouns, okay, for instance we can take me, you, him or her, it, us, you or them. These are the object's pronouns, singular and plural, okay, singular and plural. These are the objects, pronouns, not subjects. These are things that we can find as object. For example, we can say, I help David, or I help John, or I help him. Okay, I help him. The nouns, the same for nouns, okay, can be either, for example, John or Anna or student, board, etc. Okay, so these are examples of nouns, okay, of nouns, all right? For example, I read books. So books here is the object, okay? All right. The phrases like these ones, okay? We can say, for example, the book, the phone, for example, the student, etc. So these are examples of phrases, okay, of phrases with two components, more than two components, okay? All right, now let's take a very simple example, okay? Now, for instance, we can say, as an example, John. Now, here this John is subject, okay? We need verb, okay? We need verb. We can say John studied. This is verb in the past, okay? In the past, okay? John studied, we can say, for example, English. Okay, so this is the subject and studied is the verb, English is the object. Okay, now look here, John is a subject. Is it pronoun, noun or phrase? Very simple, it is a noun. Okay, it is a noun. Studied English. English, is it pronoun? Is it a noun or phrase? It is a noun for sure. English is a noun. Now let's try to rewrite these sentences using different pronouns, nouns and phrases, okay? For example, here we can say John, we can replace John with he. So we can say he, okay? The verb does not change. He studied, in the past, he studied English. English is a noun. We can replace it with a pronoun. So what is the pronoun that can replace English? Is very simply it. We can say, for example, he studied it. Okay, so it here is a pronoun. Is an object, pronoun, he studied it. Okay, we can also use phrase, for example. Okay, we can use phrase. We can say the student, as you can see, the student here is a phrase because here we have two components. Okay, the student is a subject, so we need the verb is studied. We can say, for example, the student studied English, or the student studied it, or even we can say, for example, the student studied a language, okay? A language. So one sentence, we can write it in different ways, okay? In different ways. The subject can be, as you can see here, noun or pronoun or phrase, okay? Here again, the object can be either noun or pronoun or phrase. So this is how we can write sentences using these components, okay? This component. Now take this very easy example, okay? David. We can take verb to be, for instance. We can say David is from Paris. Okay, David is a good student. Okay, so David is from Paris. David is a good student. Okay, David is a good student. This is one sentence. Okay, one sentence. Okay, so this is the verb, this is the subject, and the subject here is a noun. Okay, David is from Paris. This is preposition. And this is noun, okay, this is a noun. Okay, this is subject, this is verb, and this is the phrase, okay, this is a phrase. A good student is a phrase, okay. Now, is this sentence correct or not correct? David is from Paris. David is a good student. So here there is a problem. What is the problem? Very simply, here we have David number one and David number two. So here we have a repetition, okay, we have what we call repetition. Okay, and repetition, as I told you before, it's not good in writing. Okay, so number two, we have to replace it. Okay, we have to replace it with a pronoun. Okay, with pronoun. So what can we say? We cross out David and we replace it with he. Okay, we can say David is from Paris. He is a good student. He is a good student. So here we have David is repeated. It's not good, so we can replace it with a pronoun. So pronouns are always to replace the noun. Okay, to replace the noun. Why? To avoid repetition. Okay, to avoid repetition. And I told you before that repetition in writing is not is not good, okay? Is not good, all right? So don't forget to practice, okay? Try to write sentences with subject, verb, and object. And when you write subject, verb, and object, try to replace, okay? Like here, for example, John studied English. We replace John. We can say he studied it, or he or the student studied a language. So you try to practice this again and again, like what I did here, okay? Like what I did here, okay? So this is all for today's episode. This is the last episode about sentences. So see you in another episode. Have a good time and goodbye.